Thank you for listening to the BJJ Brick podcast. We'll be bringing you Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and good times. We hope to flatten your Jiu-Jitsu learning curve, help you get the most out of your grappling ability, and meet your goals both on and off the mat.
Welcome back, my friends, to episode 98 of the BJJ Brick podcast. This is Byron. I'm here with my buddy Gary, and we have a great interview with you with Roy Harris, one of the original Dirty Dozens of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Gary, how's it going, man?
It's going good. I am very excited for today's episode. We have Mr. Roy Harris, another one of the original Dirty Dozen. That's our second here in the last couple weeks. So we are honored to have a guest of his stature on our show today.
I was happy that he was able to give us an interview and learned a lot from it, and I'm sure you guys will as well. If you want to get the BJJ Brick podcast emailed to you every month or every week, we do a weekly show here. But if you want that in your email box, you could go to the website bjjbrick.com or on our Facebook page and fill out a little form with your name and email address. That's about it. And we'll send you out a link to the show and all the show notes in your email box. So pretty simple way to stay in touch with us.
Yeah, the good thing is you'll never miss a show. 4 a month, not one a month, 4 a month. So easy way to never miss a show. Speaking of the show, if you want to be a supporter of the show, definitely check out Byron's audiobook, Your First Year in BJJ. It's an audio book that lasts about 2.5 hours. It's only $11.99, and it's kind of a roadmap through your first year of jiu-jitsu, kind of guiding you through everything you're going to encounter. It's going to make your journey that much easier, and so hopefully your jiu-jitsu will be that much more enjoyable. So definitely check it out. We're getting great reviews, and what a great way to support the show. Yep,
definitely. Every time we sell an audiobook, I'm happy for the rest of the day, Gary. So it's just kind of an exciting compliment and to know people are out there supporting us, and to hopefully we're helping them get through their first year.
Yep, and I've seen Byron when he gets noticed that somebody has bought one of the audiobooks. He does the happy dance, and I tell you, one of these times I'll get it on camera so you can see Byron doing the happy dance, and it's quite a sight. It's better than when he made the grilled cheese sandwich. It's
been over a year since I've injured myself or broken any furniture doing my happy dance, so I'm being a little safer now, Gary.
Yeah, that's good. We want you to be safe. We have the quote of the week, and this time we have stepped outside the jiu-jitsu realm or jiu-jitsu world, and we have one from a guy named Yogi Berra. Have you heard of Yogi, Byron?
Hey, boo-boo. Get away from my picnic basket. Is that the right guy?
Not that Yogi Berra. Not the bear from Yellowstone Park. We're talking about the famous baseball player, Yogi Berra. And so basically what Yogi says, I always get nervous the night we played in the World Series. First pitch, I was nervous. Then after that, forget it. I started playing.
I could relate to that. I think that's the way everybody is when they're getting ready for competition. You know, it's like that day or maybe the day before. You're nervous. That's normal, and that's okay. But once you actually get going and you get a sweat going, and your competitor's not hasn't beat you in the opening seconds of the match, quit being nervous and you start just doing your thing. You know, and that's a really nice thing that have happened. And it, as far as I know, it usually does. It has for me. You know, that nerves go away, and then the second fight, you're not nervous at all. You just want to do it.
Yeah, it usually does. It'll go away. You get out there, you're on the big stage, your nerves are going, but as soon as you tie up and you're out there, then everything just kicks in. It's just like a day on the mats in the academy. Yeah. So the first minute, first couple seconds are the hardest, and then hopefully everything just kicks in from there.
Yeah, I think it's a nice quote, and he's got a lot of quotes out there. His are usually pretty entertaining, but it's true. You know, just to accept your nerves if you've got them, and to know that they'll be over shortly. You know, hopefully, you know, early on in that first match, and by the time the second match comes around, you should be feeling pretty good, and the nerves are usually gone.
Yeah. Hey, and an interesting fact about Yogi Berra. Did you know what his jiu-jitsu nickname was?
No, I didn't know this one.
Well, he didn't like to train in the gi, and they used to call him No-Gi Berra.
Ah, that's what I started to call you.
Yeah, no-gi bear is what they call them.
Well, that's, there you go. Maybe they should make a no-gi bear rash guard.
Actually, that's a great idea. Somebody needs to come up with that idea. Hint, hint.
If that's you, if you've come up with a no-gi bear rash guard, let us know and we'll be happy to give it a shout on the show.
Yeah, I'd like to buy one too. Just too lazy to make one.
Yeah, that's a lot of artwork.
Yeah, yep. And I'm not very artistic.
Well, everything's relative, Gary. I think you're pretty artistic compared to some people.
Well, thank you.
Well, the music is telling us to keep the show moving right along. Gary, it's time to talk about a little bit of injuries here. This article is from scienceofskill.com. It's BJJ biomechanics, rib injuries. And it just gives us a little bit of information about rib injuries, what's typical, and what you're likely to see.
And I think anybody who trains jiu-jitsu for a while is going to get a rib injury. And I actually think rib injury was my very first injury I had in jiu-jitsu, and that kept me out for any amount of time. So, and I see it over and over again. Somebody goes knee on belly, somebody shrimps, and next thing you know, you hear somebody scream and hold their side, and they'll be out for a little while. So, it's a very common injury.
I agree, and it's got some basic signs and symptoms of a rib injury. It could be anything from bruising, swelling, pain. It could be tender to the touch, and you could have some muscle strain around the ribs. Those are all fairly common. I think basic pain is probably your biggest indicator that you might have a rib injury.
Yeah, and the worst part about rib injuries, everything you do, you feel it. Every little, not even on the mat, but just at home, getting up out of bed, getting into bed, twisting, turning, every little movement you make will send a sharp pain into you. So the bad thing about rib injury, is it's going to affect your whole day.
Yeah, and it seemed like to me, with my rib injuries, everybody turns into a comedian. Everyone's making me laugh all the time, and it's like it's funny, and then it hurts to laugh, and then I have to put the brakes on my laughter, which also kind of hurts to do that. And it's just it's just vicious, man.
That's why I always recommend wear headphones when you have an injury, and that way you can't hear anybody and laugh. So that could help you out a little bit. It's not mentioned in this article, but that's my own idea.
That's prescribed right there by Gary. But headphones are the biggest way that Gary likes to help heal over his rib injuries. There's also, I think, a common, the article talks about resting, icing your ribs, using some anti-inflammatory medication to help kind of just help that out a little bit.
Yep. And I also like in the article it talks about the majority of the time, I don't think we break our ribs. We bruise them. We strain muscles. It's very, very painful. But if you break a rib, you got to be careful because that broken rib can puncture internal organs. So definitely get it checked out by a doctor. Let the doctor tell you if it's broken or not. We don't want anybody to have any punctured organs. So let the doctor tell you if it's broken or if it's not. It's still going to be painful either way. But so definitely get it checked out. Yeah,
it can. It usually is not a big deal, and usually they don't do a whole lot for you. It's not like you're going to get a cast around your rib. But if it's bothering you a lot, and you think you might have a more serious injury, any coughing up blood, or it just won't heal after, it doesn't seem to be getting any better, those are all good reasons to go get it checked out, or it's better to be a little safe than sorry. They also recommend that you do some breathing exercise and try to strengthen your ribs up, and you be careful with that. You're not you could, I would think you could do some little bit of damage if you try to breathe too deeply, and if it's really hurting you, don't push yourself too hard on those sort of things.
Yeah, and when I wonder if it's saying these breathing, if that's while you're healed. I'm not sure if they mean because next part it talks about doing planks and crunches, and I don't think you're really going to do those while you're injured. At least I know I couldn't every time I was injured. But the best way to prevent injuries is to keep them, strong and flexible. So definitely do some crunches, some planks. Make sure you're warmed up, your core is stretched. and try to prevent the injuries from happening.
The rib injuries, like we said, like you mentioned, Gary, they're pretty common. It's not like you're going to get injured all the time with your ribs, but it's a type of injury that people often just kind of just sit out and let it heal on its own. But they can become a big deal if you're experiencing like shortness of breath that just keeps getting worse and worse. Increasing chest pain, like I think I said coughing up blood before, or if you have a high fever, those are all good reasons to go in and get some help. Those, something more serious is going on. And there's also, it's not mentioned in the article, but there's a thing when you break your rib in more than one place. It's a flailed chest, so that little segment of rib is not attached to anything. It's just floating independently, and it makes it very difficult to use your ribs for what they're for. Protect your organs and help you they don't move when you breathe, so that really doesn't. It makes it hard to breathe. So that's a definite sign that you need to go in and get some help.
Yeah, definitely. And one thing I've noticed about a lot of jiu-jitsu guys, if you look at a lot of jiu-jitsu guys there, we all have kind of ribs that stick out. It seems like we've all had little injuries, and like I know from where I've had injuries, it kind of sticks out. It's not flat like it used to be, and I don't know if that's scar tissue or bone calcification or what, but I've noticed that in a lot of different people there that train jiu-jitsu from all the injuries we've had.
I've got that as well. My left side, I've got my ribs poke out a little bit, and I can't sleep on that side really, so easy.
Yep. But, just like we said, rest them while you're out. Show up to practice, watch YouTube videos. One thing I always did when I hurt myself the first time, which was the worst, I could still go to the YMCA, get on an exercise bike, because I kind of could hold my core straight by grabbing the handles on the exercise bike, and I would just ride. I'd set the timer for an hour and at least break a sweat, keep my weight down, and keep my heart moving. So find a way to do something that's not going to strain it. But definitely show up for class if you can, and keep active with your teammates.
So even back then, you were getting sweaty every day, Gary. But
I always showered.
That's good. I think that basically wraps up the article. There's more to it than what we covered, but that's a good synopsis of it. It's on scienceofskill.com, BJJ biomechanics rib injuries, so like a subcategory of the biomechanics. And check it out. We'll put a link to it in the show notes, so just go to the website and find it there. Either one is pretty good. Well, Gary, I think it's time we roll on with our interview with Roy Harris.
Stay tuned. You'll definitely learn a lot from Roy.
He is the most interesting grappler in the world.
He credits most of his wins to maintaining eye contact with his opponent. His gi never smells, even after rolling with the stinky guy. He is often seen riding a unicorn to open mat. When he got his white belt, black belts traveled for hundreds of miles just to roll with him.
I don't always listen to podcasts, but when I do, I prefer the BJJ Brick podcast. Stay sweaty, my friends.
All right, my friends, I'm happy to bring Roy Harris to the BJJ Brick podcast. Roy, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
It's an honor to have you on the show. Been a big fan of yours for a long time, watching you online and keep trying to keep up with you. And you've been at this martial art for so long. You're one of the original Dirty Dozen. Is that correct?
Yes.
And what does that mean?
Well, it was a very popular movie, I think, back in the 70s called The Dirty Dozen, where you had a bunch of badasses who kicked butt and took names. Somebody kind of used that idea for the first 12 Americans who got their black belts in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
And you were one of those first ones. So you were definitely an early adopter and somebody who didn't just do it casually. You really picked it up and ran with it.
Yes. In the beginning, my focus was just to train in the art for 2 or 3 years, learn the basics, and then move on because of my background in other styles. My instructors told me that if I wanted to be a complete fighter, I needed to learn how to fight on the ground. And personally, I hated the ground, and I did a little bit of judo and a little bit of shoot wrestling. And it was okay, but it just wasn't for me. I really liked the stand-up fighting, specifically the close-quarter stuff, empty-handed with a knife. And so my original goal was just to spend 2 or 3 years learning the basics and then go back to my stuff. But, here I am now 24 years later, and, still loving the art.
What do you remember what switched about it that made you go from disliking it to having a passion for it?
For me, it was really the training method. I've been involved in 27 different styles of martial arts, and, they all have their pros and cons, their strengths and weaknesses. And what really turned me on about jiu-jitsu was the fact that it had a training method that I really liked. You had a little bit of theory, you learned some techniques, you did some drills, and then you sparred with it. And so that was really attractive. A lot of martial arts, you do technique and then you spar, and there's nothing really in the middle. And because I had some fairly decent quality of instruction, I learned how to drill it, and that made things really fun. And plus, back in those days, I had a training partner who became just as obsessed with the art as I did, and we ended up training, like hour and a half, 2 hours, 3 hours every day. And so that made a huge impact. And this hour and a half to 3 hours every day that we trained was outside of the normal, 2-hour class that we went to once or twice a week.
Well, that's interesting way to train and to develop with another person, as far as you both got a lot of time with each other, and I'm sure that developed your game in a certain way that it'd be different if that same time was spent in the classroom with your coach and with a variety of teammates. But you had the opportunity to train with somebody a lot, and you definitely took that, and I think probably you both gained a lot of knowledge and skill from each other.
We did, and we discovered that most of our skill sets were actually developed outside of class, because in class there was much more of an emphasis on learning the technique and practicing the technique. But the drilling, there wasn't a whole lot of drilling. There was some, but usually you learned some techniques, you drilled it for a little bit, and then you went live and you sparred with it. And you weren't able to develop anything, and so the group class was really good for learning, whereas the extra time that we spent outside of class, we drilled and sparred a lot, and that's really where the skill sets were developed. Yeah,
it's the funnest part, I think, and I think that's common with anybody like you who has that passion. It's to do this drilling and sparring and develop the stuff that you've learned in class. That sounds great. Could you describe your style of jiu-jitsu for somebody who hasn't seen you grapple before?
One of my nicknames that I earned fairly early in my jiu-jitsu experience was BOA, like the boa constrictor. And that's because the method of grappling that I do is very slow and methodical and heavy. My grappling method was inspired a lot by Rickson Gracie and Higan Machado, two practitioners who are not only very talented at what they do, but especially Rickson. When I sparred with him, I felt like I was rolling with a 400-pound mind-reading boa constrictor. He just, he could turn it up and move fast if he wanted to, but he preferred to give you enough pressure to make you uncomfortable to where you felt as though all doors were closed except for one or two. And then when you tried to exit the pressure through a particular door, you got caught in an arm lock or a choke or a leg lock. And so that made an impression on me. So I tried to emulate that, and that became my grappling method over the years. And so my style is more pressure-oriented than movement-oriented.
That sounds like a great style. I like how you described it as not just a 400-pound boa constrictor, but a mind-reading boa constrictor. There's that level there where it seems like everything that you were doing back then was easily predicted by him, and he was ready for that. And I think that's as many new people and as we try to develop this art, we kind of get to where we could feel out our opponents and what they're going to do, but it's always that the next level that can see and almost predict what you're going to do before you do it, and that's interesting.
Yes, that's a fascinating thing that happens in jiu-jitsu, only with a lot of experience. You know, it doesn't happen in the first 2 or 3 years, and it's one of those things that sounds really cool, and man, I can't wait to do that, but you know, the first 2 or 3 years is about laying the foundation. You know, the way I look at it is, you know, in order to build the building, first thing you have to do is you have to prep the ground. Once the ground is prepped, then you have to lay a foundation. And then once the foundation is laid, you have to wait for the foundation to set. Because then once the foundation is set, now you can build all the flashy and flimsy things on top of it that people look at and think, wow, that's really cool. But, you know, when they walk into this multi-million-dollar building, nobody stomps the ground and says, wow, Byron, this is a great foundation that you've laid. They look at all the flimsy stuff. And, you know, if I were speaking to people who were just beginning their journey in jiu-jitsu, I'd say, you know, it's the flashy stuff, it's the flimsy stuff that, you know, gets torn down in a storm, but it's the foundation that never moves. So it's the foundation of jiu-jitsu, learning how to position yourself and how to use good posture and how to move properly. These are the things that really lay the foundation so that you can actually build something that's personal and works for you.
When you started jiu-jitsu, there wasn't the internet and YouTube and all this stuff, so you really got that foundation fed to you by your coaches and instructors. Nowadays, you know, we have our coaches and instructors, but it's so tempting, especially when you're new, to go and look at that cool, flashy stuff the world champions are doing and try to bring that into the game. What do you think about that?
I think there are two aspects of jiu-jitsu, one on each end of the spectrum. There's the fun part, where we want to enjoy the art and we want to try things that are new, that are exciting, that are challenging, and I think that's good. But then there is also the other end of the spectrum, and that's the functional side, and that is we want to be able to do those things that work for us. We want to be able to escape the bottom of the mount, the bottom of the side mount. We want to be able to pass the guard. We want to be able to hold down and control people. And so looking at a world champion, especially somebody who is a brown belt or a black belt, at those two levels, you're seeing, especially at the black belt level, you're seeing somebody who is not only good at the fun stuff, but also good at the functional stuff. And so many times people miss the functional stuff that the world champion is actually using, and they focus on the flashy stuff that the individual is doing, and that's what they want to focus on. And then they discover that, man, I can't do this when I spar. Of course you can't, because you're seeing a personalized art, one that's been adapted over many hundreds, even thousands of hours of training. So in the beginning, yeah, you really have to lay that foundation, not with the flash, but with the boring stuff, because that's the principle of life. You know, you got to eat your meat and potatoes and vegetables before you get to the dessert.
Yeah, and we all love the dessert though, but you do have to lay that foundation and eat the meal first before you get to the dessert. I like that example. The idea of the BJJ Brick podcast, the brick to it is the foundation aspect of it, but also a brick as a weapon, and that if you're able to focus your energy on a couple of like key techniques for you, instead of trying to learn a whole bunch of techniques, you actually get like a weapon to use because it's a lot more efficient to learn a couple of things rather than 100 things. Do you remember maybe one of the first things that you were able to pick up, and maybe a submission that you were able to do exceedingly well that was one of your first bricks?
One of the first bricks I ever developed was the straight footlock. I was very fortunate that early on in my jiu-jitsu experience, I was teaching jiu-jitsu, started out as a self-defense class, turned into a jiu-jitsu class at the University of California at San Diego. And one day a guy walked in and says, he saw us sparring, and he goes, "Hey, can I roll with you guys?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure." And he destroyed me in front of my students. He was a black belt in Russian Sambo. And I had never experienced anything like that before. And so I was like, wow, what is this? Sambo? What's Sambo? So I started to train with him, and then I brought that experience to jiu-jitsu, and I really took this I had this affinity for the straight footlock. And back in those days, 91, 92, it wasn't as well received as it is today, but the first brick I actually developed was the straight footlock, and getting it from every position: the top of the mount, the bottom of the mount, the top of the guard, the bottom of the guard, top of the side mount, bottom of the side mount, and being able to enter into it and control from it and finish with it. That was my first brick.
And I imagine you were able to tap up a skill level, people that you weren't able to usually tap out. If you were going to get them, it was going to be that straight footlock. Is that correct?
Yeah, as a blue belt, I tapped out all the way up to black belt.
That's quite impressive, and that's I think that says a couple of things about the time and. But like you said, back then people didn't really like the footlocks as much, and they weren't trained as well. And you found that niche, and you really worked on that, and it became a skill that you found like a loophole in people's games, I think.
Yes, and it was nothing I discovered on my own. It's just I happened to be in the right place at the right time, and this guy shows up, and I get a chance to train with him because he was a student at the university, and my training partner at the time, we loved the leg lock stuff, and then when we started to use it in class, we discovered, like, wow, it's pretty easy to use it against others in class, because it just, back then, it was one of the forbidden fruit. We weren't supposed to use it. As a matter of fact, we got counseled and disciplined to stop using it. But still, on our own, we continue to train it because we saw the value of it.
Help explain to me that idea that it's not a good technique, or that it's the forbidden fruit. Everybody, a choke is so final. You could choke them unconscious. It's clearly a fight-ending submission. An armbar will damage somebody's arm, severely, and so will a leg lock. You could it's a fight-ending technique. Why is it that the feet are often seen as something that is a little bit frowned upon?
From personal experience, I think it's a couple of things. Number one, the instructors being unfamiliar with it. And the second thing, it tends to be a little more injurious than arm locks or chokes. And the reason why is this. There are certain leg locks that, when they're done, some people don't feel them until something tears. And because legs are primary in life, we walk everywhere we go. It's one of those locks that can have a profound impact on your life. And so because of the instructor's unfamiliarity with it, and they don't know how to counter it or get out of it, and then secondly, because of some people, not all, it's been my experience that, if I leg lock 10 different practitioners, there's going to be one or two that you put them in a straight footlock or you put them in a heel hook and they don't feel anything. And then you go a little farther with the pressure, and then there's this loud pop, and then they yell and scream, and now they're upset with you. Well, it wasn't really your fault. It was just the fact that you put them into this footlock or this heel hook or this knee bar, and they felt a little bit of pressure, but it didn't feel like they needed to tap. You applied a little bit more pressure, and then something tore. So those two things really amount to, in my mind, why in the beginning the instructors didn't want these techniques used in class.
It seems like some of the students are just, they want to feel that pain before they tap. Even with arm bars, I know when my arm gets straightened out and I can't really move the rest of my body, I'm stuck in the arm bar. I don't need to have my arm extended, and I know when I can't hardly move and I'm stuck in a choke and I'm getting a little dizzy, that's good enough. I don't need to go to sleep. And with the straight footlock, I think people tap for two different reasons. Maybe I don't know a whole lot about straight footlocks, but it seems like there's initial pain on your Achilles tendon, and some people will tap from that. And then as your foot goes straight, it's like you're going to bend my foot backwards over your arm, over your forearm, and that's going to actually do some damage to your foot. And that's when most people will decide to tap, I think. Is that an accurate way to describe the footlock and how that mechanism works?
Yes, yeah. One of the things that I think is important for instructors to teach, I think that is missing in the world of jiu-jitsu is the idea of how to become a great training partner, and two, how to develop great training partners. It's the idea of developing a community. It's the idea of developing an environment that is safe and conducive to learning. And with people who have experience, the blue belts, the purple, the brown, and the black, sometimes when you apply a submission and you've applied it 100 times before and you know there's pressure on the limb or the neck, and you see the person, your training partner, your fellow jiu-jitsu family member, and you see them struggling, give it up. Don't hurt the person. Give it up and go to something else. But because that's not emphasized, you get people who develop this mindset of the tap is everything. And so to me, it's not the fact that this technique or that technique is injurious. They're all injurious. But what's missing is teaching students to control their mindset, their emotions, and their physical abilities.
I couldn't agree more with you. There's no time in your training that it's worth hurting your partner, and if they are unable to recognize that they're stuck or they're just too stubborn to tap from it, move on. It's not worth them potentially being injured.
Very true.
It seems like things happen in any sport. The injuries do happen, but with jiu-jitsu, we're so focused about my arm bar is going to damage your arm. I'm really vigilant about that potential there, and that's unlikely. It seems to me that at least with the more careful training partners, you get injured from accidents. You fall funny, or you might roll over, a limb kind of weird, and that happens. And that seems to be, it's an unfortunate way to get hurt, but that's more acceptable. It's actually an accident and not a submission taken a little too far.
Mm-hmm.
You do a lot of training with people who are, I guess, over 40. I don't break it off at that age. Everybody's bodies age differently, but what would be a good goal for a student who is getting on the mats and starting to enjoy jiu-jitsu and they're over 40?
Well, when I first start training an individual or a group of people who are over 40 and they want to learn jiu-jitsu, the very first thing that I teach them is mindset. And I have 4 simple mindsets that I have them begin with. The first mindset is safety above all. What does that mean? It shows itself in several different areas. One, you get there early and you warm up, because now that you're over 40, you got to warm up your body to make sure that you don't get injured, because you're not 20 years old. Another way it looks, it shows itself is you're sparring with somebody and you're a blue belt and you just happen to capture this purple belt. You have to capture his arm, and you're just an inch or 2 away from tapping this highly competitive young purple belt. Wisdom and experience will tell you, don't tap them, because if you tap them, their ego is going to swell up so big that they're going to teach you a lesson in round 2. So sometimes safety is just realizing, what? If I tap this person, it's going to go to the next level. Therefore, I need to make a mistake and then let this person get out of the arm lock. Safety also looks like this. Hey, Byron, you want to go? And I'm this 20-year-old phenom and I'm a bit of a meathead. Sometimes you just say no. You understand that my wife and I are going on vacation on Saturday, and we're leaving Saturday morning 2 days from now, and I can't get injured. Or I have this big presentation that I have to make at work, and I can't have, a black eye, a deviated septum, this rash mark across my face. I need to say no. So first mindset is safety above all. Second mindset, enjoyment. Jiu-jitsu training is a hobby. High 90-some percentile of us are not going to fight in the UFC and are not going to be in some back alley brawl. It's supposed to be fun. It's a hobby. Therefore, I need to do those things that are conducive to me leaving the academy, feeling like I learned some really good stuff, feeling like I got a good workout, feeling like I developed some good camaraderie and a bond with the people that I train with, and that I really am enjoying this journey. It's not enjoyable when you're getting injured, when you're getting beat up, even when you're getting dominated by somebody who's much bigger and stronger. And so enjoyment has to also be a part of making decisions to do and not do things. The third mindset is evaluating, having a way of evaluating your progress. The tap is a very poor way of evaluating whether or not you're making progress. So there has to be another way of evaluating how am I making progress. And then the fourth mindset is have a progression, have a structured progression that develops your skill sets so that you can see this this progression, how I was totally clueless to sweeps. I now know some sweeps. I now can see the sweeps. I can now barely enter into the sweeps and off-balance somebody. I can almost get the sweep. I can get the sweep. I am now using the sweep as a setup for my arm locks. Do you see that progression? from you don't know it to you just know it, but you can't do it. But now you can enter into it to eventually you're not only using it to put people on their back, but you're using it as a tool to set people up for an arm lock or a choke. So there has to be this structured progression in your training so that you can see the progress. And so everything begins with mindset. And then the second thing I show them is how to position themselves. The way I look at it, it's like lifting a heavy weight. The first thing you do is you position yourself. And then the second thing you do is you move the weight. So just like you're going to deadlift 400 pounds, you got to have the mindset of, I can do this, I can do this, I can do this. And then the second thing you have to do is you position yourself properly so that you don't injure yourself. And then eventually you have to have a proper movement skill set. And so that is how I present jiu-jitsu to the over 40 practitioners that I teach.
That sounds like a great four things you say. I'll go through them real quick. Safety above all, enjoyment, evaluating progress, and progression in a structured way. That is, I think that's great for anybody. But yeah, you really geared towards the over 40 crowd there. I really like the enjoyment aspect of it, that we're doing this for fun. If it's not fun, something's wrong with what you're doing. And as we all get older, fitness, it becomes even more important as we age. So being able to do a fitness activity that is fun. I'm not just aimlessly jogging down the road, getting bored. I'm going to jiu-jitsu. It is fun, and I am getting a great workout, and that's just amazing. There, you mentioned evaluating your progress, and getting taps is not a great way to evaluate how you're doing. How could somebody evaluate what they're doing, or if what they're doing is the right thing for them?
And this is where good instructor, having a good instructor that cares about you and takes the time to help you to evaluate where your progress is. When I started this over 40 thing back in the early 2000s, I did so because my email inbox got full of hundreds of emails from practitioners around the world complaining about the very same things, about sparring with these young guns, the guys in their late teens and 20s, guys who go hard and fast and explosive, and then also they didn't know how to evaluate their progress. So when I started this back in, I think it was like when my BJJ over 40 DVD came out in 2003, 2004, I got a lot of positive feedback from that, and I got a lot of emails from people telling me that they not only enjoyed the information, but they saw how the information was lowering the amount of injuries that they were receiving from the young guns. And to me, I think lowering the amount of injuries that you experience during your jiu-jitsu training is one of the big rocks of evaluating your progress. I think another way of evaluating your progress is your enjoyment. Everybody wants to evaluate their progress based on skill set. But when it comes to developing a skill with any physical endeavor, it's a time-consuming process. You can't evaluate your progress from day to day or from week to week. You can see it a little bit in the month-to-month or year-to-year, but the skill sets don't come very quickly. However, injuries and enjoyment, you can evaluate those day to day and week to week. And so I think a good place to start for the over 40 practitioners is, are you, with this new mindset and with this new positioning and the new techniques that you've learned from the BJJ over 40, do you feel yourself getting injured less? Do you feel yourself starting to enjoy the journey more? That's a good start.
Yeah, that is great. You mentioned training with the young guys and trying to avoid having them rough you up and take away that enjoyment. If the only gym that's available for you is a gym that's like that, they're full of people who are active competitors, maybe some MMA, and it's a fairly elite gym. Would an older person be able to go in there and with the proper attitude and mindset, be able to train his training partners how to properly train with them?
Yes. I believe everything begins with good leadership and good communication. And so I would advise the over 40 practitioner to walk in and sit down and have a talk with his instructor first. And then secondly, talk with some of the guys and gals that he wants to train with. For example, back in the day when I had my academy, I had a number of people come and look at my gym and like what they saw, and then pull me into my office and say, I need to speak with you privately. And they told me, look, I'm a Navy SEAL. Look, I'm a surgeon. And they presented their need to me, and they said, I like what I see here, but I can't get injured. And so I want to know if you will help me to not get injured. And I said, sure. And so when I saw Dr. So-and-so, who was a hand specialist surgeon, go out and pick a training partner, sometimes I saw the training partner and they're like, okay, that's a good training partner. He can work with him tonight. Or I saw him pick one of my knuckleheads, and I would say, no, let me have you work with him. So I felt as though as a leader that I was responsible for my clients. And so I think the first thing that the over 40 practitioner needs to do is to have a serious sit-down talk with their instructor and to make their instructor partially responsible for the good training partners. Second thing that the over 40 practitioner needs to do is to go to the guys and gals that they like, especially the ones that are the competitors, and say, hey, I really want to work with you guys, but I need you to understand that, I'm a vice president of this company, I am a hand surgeon, I am whatever, and I really can't get injured. And when you work with me, when you spar with me, can I ask you a personal favor? Can I ask you to tone it down? Because I can't get injured. And I'm not copying out. I'm not trying to tell you that I'm afraid, but I just need you to do this for me. And so by communicating those thoughts to your instructors and your training partners, now you have the opportunity to train safely. And hopefully they will allow you to.
Yeah, I think that if and you roll that way to where if I talk to you and say, hey, I'm really worried about getting hurt, and you get me in a near arm bar, and you kind of slow things down, and I yank my arm out as quick as I can, and with a bunch of energy and force, the conversation I think will lose some of its meaning if I'm taking advantage of, because a lot of people, like you said before, you shouldn't injure your partners, trying to finish their submission. But a lot of people, they get 90% there and they slow down for you to do you the favor, and then you use that as an opportunity to escape. That would be frustrating for a lot of people. So I think rolling that way also would be a great thing that they would need to implement.
Yeah, what's interesting, since I started doing more BJJ over 40 workshops, and this year I started doing the BJJ over 40 instructor course, I've made an interesting observation, and that is the problem children that I have are all guys in their 50s. Guys in their 40s and guys in their 60s majority of them, 9 out of 10 of those guys, they get it. They understand that, this is a hobby. But guys in their 50s, I don't know. It's like I'm 53 myself, and I don't know if they think it's the last hurrah or they still got it or what, but in many of my workshops, I've actually had to scold several guys in the 50s. It's like, slow down. You're the reason why a lot of these 20-year-olds are hurting you. Yeah, the 20-year-olds are going hard, but you're going just as hard. And I understand you feel as though you need to, if they go fast, you go fast. If they go hard, you go hard. No, that's the 20-year-old mindset, and it's guaranteed to give you an injury. You need to slow down. I know you don't believe me, but you need to slow down. So it's been interesting to observe that the people that I've had the most problems with, that still spar very hard, even though they're older, 40 practitioner, is the guys in the 50s.
That's an interesting observation about, I don't know what's going on in their minds that make them do that a little differently, but you're in a unique position to notice something like that, and thanks for sharing that. And if that might be you out there listening to this, take that to heart. And maybe if you could slow things down a little bit on your end, people will react that way, and they'll help you out on that and slow down as well. Usually, do you have a preference for gi or no gi for the over 40 crowd?
No, I leave that up to the individual practitioner, because some like gi, some like no gi. Myself, thanks to Grandma and Grandpa, I started to develop arthritis in my hands in my early 30s, and so I can't do a lot of hard gi work. Plus, it's been my experience that 100% of the grip fighting used in no gi applies to the gi, but only about 20% of the gi fighting applies to no gi. And so I tend to lean more towards the no gi because of the arthritis in my hands and because the application of the grips. But some people just have this idea that, it's all about the gi and I have to work with the gi. And so we spend time working with the gi. So I really let the individual practitioner choose.
Could you maybe give us an example about some no-gi grip fighting and how that would translate over easier than the gi grip fighting?
Yes, the no-gi grip fighting, you tend to do more cupping with the hand and hooking with the hand and the wrist. That is something you can do with the gi and without the gi. With the gi, most people do the hammer fist kind of grip or the panther grip, where the fingers are pulled in, and sometimes the fingers are pulled all the way in like a fist. But that particular grip does not work all the time. Sometimes it doesn't even work most of the time when you have somebody big, strong, and sweaty. And so the cupping with the hand or the cupping with the hand and the wrist, those apply both gi and no gi. Back in the day when I did a lot of no gi work, and I'm talking about when I first opened up my academy in 1994, I was like the only individual who was doing no gi work. As a matter of fact, that expression didn't exist. I'd have people come to my academy from other academies and say, "What is that?" And I was like, "Well, this is our no-gi work." Like, no, there's no such thing as no-gi work. That just looks like Bali Tudo. It's like, no, we're doing jiu-jitsu, the same thing, but we're doing it without the gi. Oh, there's no such thing as no-gi. And people would come and train with us, and we called them shredders, because they were so used to the gi. They would grab our T-shirts at the sleeve by the bicep or at the neck, and they'd grab it like a gi, and they'd end up ripping and shredding our T-shirts because they were so used to grabbing cloth in a fist and controlling you that way. So I think the cupping with the hand and the wrist, that's a great example of a grip that can be used no gi and gi.
Thanks for clarifying that. And the shredders brought back memories of when I was a white belt, maybe a blue belt, getting choked by my own T-shirt, hearing it give out and hearing it rip. I don't know if I was happy that the choke was dissolving or frustrated that my shirt was getting ruined. But you kind of pioneered the no-gi side of jiu-jitsu. That's really cool. A lot of people over 40 or at any age aren't able to train every day. Like you were able to train when you were younger and you had the partner and you were training hours before class and then go to class. If you're only able to train twice a week or maybe 3 times, what advice would you give to a student to be able to build their skill and progress in their techniques?
Here are my thoughts on that subject. First thing I would tell people, and I've told people this, I say you have to change your mindset. What you mean is train at my academy. You can train every day. You don't need a training partner to train. You can train every day. How do you train every day? Learning some fundamental movements like your bridge, your shrimping, stand up and base, roll over your shoulder forward, roll over your shoulder backwards, spin on your hands. These are all movements that you can do at home every day to develop the strength and the flexibility and the endurance in the muscles that you use for the majority of your basic techniques. And so the idea of I can only train twice a week, well, that's not a correct statement. What you mean is you can't train at your academy more than 2 days a week because your life is busy. I understand that, but you can train every day. You can only train at your academy twice a week. That's good. Train at home 5 days a week by doing simple exercises to develop strength and endurance and flexibility. Second thing I would recommend is, number 1, save your pennies and buy some mats. Okay, so it's going to take you 2 years to save your pennies. Go into it with 2 or 3 other guys so that you can do it much sooner, and buy some mats and train out of somebody's garage 1 day a week, 2 days a week. Another way is to take a look around town and see if there isn't an open room somewhere where you can throw down some mats, or even if they have some mats. Like one of the things that I told my students to do many years ago was at the one of the major universities here in California, once they built a new main gym, everybody left the old gym and was now training at the new gym. And the old gym had a mat room, and it wasn't being used. And so I was like, yes, you have to pay some parking. I think it was like $4 or $5. You got to pay some parking to park on campus, but drive up there and use the mat room in the old gym. Get together with guys at your academy, exchange phone numbers, exchange emails, and say, hey, can we get together on Wednesdays after work and Saturday mornings? That's an additional 2 days a week that you can train. And then one of the ways that I trained myself to, once my training partner started to get busy, was I learned this technique from a book called Guerrilla Marketing by Conrad Levinson, where I went out and made some flyers, put flyers on cars all around my neighborhood, made 400 flyers, bought a little pager, and had people call me. The flyer basically said I would teach jiu-jitsu for free if you wanted to learn it. And here was the goal. My goal was to get 30 to 40 people to call me, interview them, and then narrow that 30 or 40 down to 9, 10, 11, 12 people that I wanted to train with. And I would teach them jiu-jitsu for free for, let's say, 45 days. We would train for an hour once a week, but during that hour, they would have to do exactly what I wanted them to do for the first 35 to 40 minutes. And then the last 20 to 25 minutes, they could have me teach them whatever they want. They could spar, they could do whatever. And then from those 8, 9, 10 people, at the end of the 45-day period, I would then thank them, but I would pick 1 or 2 people that had a great attitude, that were great training partners, and I would say, hey, would you like to continue working with me? So that way, I went from 30-some people who called me down to 8 people. I worked with these 8 people once, sometimes twice a week for a period of 45 days. And then at the end of the 45 days, I took 6 or 7 people, and I shook their hands like, thank you, I hope you got something valuable out of that. Sent them on their way. I got something out of it. They got something out of it. But the thing that I got out of it was I got 1 or 2 training partners who were worth their weight in gold. And I did that 2 or 3 times and ended up with 4 or 5 really good training partners that they eventually became my students.
I love your answer. I think people could assume that you had – I asked you a question, if you can only train twice a week, what do you do? I think people assume that you probably already knew that was coming. I just asked you that, and you had no idea that was coming. And with so much experience and just being around the sport and the martial art, that you answered it for everybody. You covered people who just should do a little bit of stuff at home, just be at home and get some time to do some drills by yourself, to all the way up to developing your own little team of grapplers that you develop. And it's just, you covered all aspects of it. No matter what your problem is, there's no reason why you can't, just like you said, you can't make it to the gym every day, but you could be training every day. And that was such a great answer. I wrote down so much stuff about that. I really appreciate the experience and the advice you gave on that one.
You're welcome. You
have a website and some apps that are available. Is that correct? Could you tell us a little bit about those?
Yes. My main website is royharris.com. It's kind of a link to my other websites. Very excited about this fall. I'm actually going to start online classes. I'm going to bring back the old days of the Harris Academy training, but I'm going to do it more in an online format. I'm very excited about the new stuff that's going to be going on my websites. And then, my apps, I was very fortunate to have one of my students introduce me to a programmer to help me to put my instructional videos on iOS apps. Unfortunately, they're only on iOS apps right now, but coming this fall, closer to Christmas time, I'll be actually putting many of them on the Android platform as well. And right now the apps are exclusive to Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, but I've decided that I'm going to be putting most of my eggs into one basket, and that is I'm going to be developing a lot of apps, and my goal is to put everything in my brain on an app.
Wow. And so you're going to it sounds like you're putting everything in with the app ideas. We're thinking one huge app, or are you going to do a lot of apps about different topics?
Yeah, I'm going to do several apps about a variety of different topics. Because I've been involved in so many different styles of martial arts, my main money maker is the jiu-jitsu. That's where most people know me. But what's interesting about being involved in all these different arts is I've had a lot of people who really don't understand my involvement in these other arts, and I've even had some people say, oh yeah, Harris is a BJJ black belt who's dabbled in these other arts. No, I've done a lot more than dabble in these other arts, and And so I want to begin the journey of showing people the depth of knowledge and understanding and training that I have in Bruce Lee's Jeet Kune Do, in Filipino Kali, the stick, knife, and sword fighting methods, in Boxe Français Sabat, a French kickboxing method. I want to show these other areas because I work with a lot of different groups, and like recently I just came back from Mexico, and I taught a group of police officers a bit of what I call my low-lying warfare training, and I just use the word warfare as more of a catchy word. It's not anything about military, but it's just simply about the fact of fighting between the groin and the ankle, and fighting exclusively between the groin and the ankle, and how to fight and how to counter-fight. Because most people, when you think of fighting, they're thinking about the head and the arms, and focusing one's attention on even fighting between the knee and the ankle. If you ask many people, they think, well, okay, I know a side kick. Oh, there's so much more to fighting on that level than people know of. And so I plan on releasing an app on this particular topic and on a bunch of other topics in the years to come. And so I'm very, very excited about this endeavor.
This fighting between the ankle and knee or groin, that's like a self-defense side?
It can be self-defense. It can be used in the sport of MMA. It can be used in kickboxing. It's just, how before the Gracies made jiu-jitsu known, Brazilian jiu-jitsu known to the rest of the world, we were really blind to all that is possible on the ground. On the ground, we think of more of wrestling and judo, taking somebody there and pinning them. That was pretty much most people's mindset. I mean, you had people like Gene LaBelle, who was kind of like the grandfather of grappling in this country. You had those people who were doing finger locks and thumb locks and neck cranks and footlocks. But most of us were really blind to all the possibilities of fighting on the ground. It's the same thing with this low-lying warfare or fighting and only doing your techniques, whether it's a throw or a takedown or a strike, doing them between the knee and the ankle. It's a whole other world.
Yeah, that sounds fascinating. I'm having a hard time grasping what's going on here. I'm looking forward to the app. How could somebody make sure that when the app comes out that they're notified?
RoyHarris.com will have all of the updates on my seminars, my workshops, the new apps that come out. I got a new book coming out this fall as well. So, I put all my updates on RoyHarris.com. Okay,
that sounds great. And we'll put a link to all the different websites and apps and books that you have out on the website there, or on the show notes. I appreciate you giving us the interview here, and I know everybody has enjoyed your answers. Thank you very much for coming on to the BJJ Brick podcast.
Well, thank you very much for your time, and thank you for this opportunity.
I really want to thank Roy Harris for giving me his time and sharing his experience with us, and I really hope you guys appreciate who he is and what he was able to share today. Tremendous honor. And I really enjoyed him talking about his over 40 mindset, specifically the first two things safety above all and enjoyment. Those are two big things that I'm on. When people aren't training safely, that seems to be like a hot button issue for me. And I tend to, try to stop that immediately. If I see somebody doing something that's unsafe, I am not always the most, I try to be a fun, loving, easy, happy guy, easygoing. But when I see somebody doing something that they shouldn't be doing, especially if they know better, safety above all. I'd rather be safe than nice all the time. So not that I'm turning into a total jerk or anything, but I'll let them know that that's not acceptable. And then enjoyment. This is a hobby. We're here to have fun and enjoy what we're doing. And we're also fortunate that this thing that we find so fun is a great exercise.
Yeah. And I can really relate to Roy, being over 40. As I've got older, injuries pop up more and more often, which too many injuries make it where it's not enjoyable. I start thinking, boy, it's just sport for me. So I really watch who I train with. I try to make sure I'm really well warmed up. But the biggest thing is, if you're going to keep doing this sport, you have to love it. Like Roy says, there's got to be that enjoyment. And to be honest, I don't know how somebody could not enjoy this sport. This sport is awesome. And to me, it's not about competition. It's not about anything else. To me, it's just about having a good time. I like my training partners, have a good time, and this sport is so fun. It's just it's like a big chess match, and besides even the exercise I'm getting, it's just fun to match your mind mentally, go for that next move, and try to outsmart somebody. So enjoyment to me is number one here. If
you want to interact with us on social media, there's a few ways you could do that. Our Facebook page is probably our best way. Facebook.com/BJJ Brick. That's easy. We have a Twitter account, a YouTube account.
That's easy.
They're all pretty easy. I think there's Instagram, and I think we have a Pinterest. We got a few different things. Facebook seems to be the thing that we do the best. Not that we're so great at it, but it's just something that we enjoy going to. You can message us on there as well. It's an easy way to contact us both.
We always like to meet new friends in the jiu-jitsu world. Speaking of that, we're here in the Midwest, Wichita, Kansas. If you happen to come out here in the Midwest, send us a message. We'd love to train with you. We're always looking to get on the mat with listeners and learning from you and just having a good time. So, check us out there. Also, gi patches. I know we've talked about gi patches numerous times, but if you want a BJJ Brick gi patch, it's a small patch, just like it's got Byron and I on it, just like on our Facebook page and our website there. Go on to iTunes, go on to Stitcher Radio, write us a review. Hopefully we'll earn a 5-star review, but if not, give us what you think we earned. Send us a message, either on the Facebook page or to bjjbrick@gmail.com. Let us know that was you, so that, because otherwise we have no clue it was you. Let us know it was you. We will get you out a patch. And sorry, United States only. We just are too cheap, and we haven't sold enough audiobooks to pay the postage yet. So definitely check out the gi patch. We'd appreciate you showing support by wearing it.
Yep. It's always fun to send out those gi patches, Gary.
Yep.
I want to start something new here and see if it takes off a little bit. If you want to go to the website and comment on this is episode 98, I would like you to answer this question. If you're over 40, what is your favorite submission? Or just favorite technique? If you like a sweep or a certain submission best, go to the website, answer that, and I like to see the audience that's over 40, what you're doing out there and what you prefer. So that'd be a great place to have a little conversation about jiu-jitsu.
So only if you're over 40 can you answer the question?
I don't know. If you're a little under, or maybe if you're under and you train with somebody who's over 40, what do they do? What are they doing? Are they doing some crazy submission? Or they're keeping to the basics? So that's I guess if you're under, let us know a little bit about one of your teammates and what they're good at.
Yeah, that's awesome. I like that. Yeah, definitely. Let us know. Tell us your favorite submission.
Gary, we are coming up very close to episode 100 here. And that's going to be, we're going to need a little help from the audience.
Definitely. 100 is a special number. Now we have 3 numbers instead of just 2. So that just shows we've been doing this for 100 weeks. So we've got a special show where we're going to include the audience. And basically we want you to do a little audio clip for us. Send it to us. Let us know what jiu-jitsu has done for you. It's such a great sport. We hear great stories all the time. We see people smiling when they talk about jiu-jitsu. So tell us what it has done for you and how it has impacted your life.
Yep. If you can, just record it on your phone with the little memo button or memo app that it comes with. If that doesn't work, email us at our bjjbrick@gmail.com, and I'll get with you and we'll record one together. We really need some participation on this one to make it a great show, and we're just a couple episodes away from it, and I need time to edit this, so really this is probably one of the last times that we'll be able to hear from you and share your story with the community. We're really looking forward to that.
Yeah, how cool is that? You can tell your friends you're on a podcast and let all your training partners know, and they can all listen to you. So kind of neat.
Gary, as usual, we've wrapped up most of the business that we had to talk about today, and we're down to the part we've talked about the audiobook I made a while back about your first year in BJJ, but Gary is working on an audiobook of his own.
Another audiobook. And like I've told you guys before, Byron's my manager, so he lets me know what audiobooks I'm going to be working on. So this one I haven't heard about yet, but let's hear it, Byron. I'll get it going.
Yeah, absolutely. It seems like you always forget the title of your own books.
I've been choked out a little too many times. This
book has a nice picture. It's like a black and white silhouette of Gary sitting on a train on a boxcar. It's called Boxcars and Hitchhiking, How I Crossed the U.S. with only $15 and a black eye. Gary, just tell us a little bit about your adventure across the United States. And
what happened? The neat thing is you think about jiu-jitsu. It's really an adventure. It's a journey. And, I mean, a lot of us go around to different towns, train at different places. We realize the value of cross-training, that we're going to learn more by training with more people, just open up our minds and learn new techniques. So this audio book is going to be my story of how I've basically just put $15 in my pocket. I started at the coast. I went back home to New York, and I started from New York, and I hopped trains and went all the way around the United States, and learned a lot of jiu-jitsu, got a lot of black eyes, some sore knees. I busted up my ribs a couple times, but that's what we're going to talk about. So it's a great audiobook, well worth it.
How'd you get the first black eye on the trip?
I hate to tell you, the first black eye was right off the bat. I hopped a train. And as we stopped, I was, coming out of the train, trying to sneak out of the train, but the conductor caught me. And he wasn't too happy with somebody hitching a free ride, so he punched me.
Punched you right in the face, right in the eye, give or take.
Yeah, but, so it happens. Don't hitch rides on trains where you're not supposed to be there.
You know what Rex Kwon Do says, block it every time.
Well, he also told me to break the wrist and walk away. So I don't think that guy's a conductor anymore, because it's hard to conduct with a broken wrist.
You broke the wrist. Literally, you broke it, huh?
Yeah, yep. Break the wrist and walk away.
You can't even be a music conductor anymore.
Yeah, yep. That hurts you.
Shattered his dreams, Gary.
Yeah, yep. It happens.
All right, well, we have, as we continue to spiral off air, we'll let everybody else go.
Yeah, definitely tune in next week. We have a great interview next week with Alexander Trans, basically a black belt there from Checkmat Academy, very high-level competitor, so don't miss that.
Wow, that's going to be a lot of fun talking with somebody of that caliber. We want to thank you so much for listening, and as always, stay sweaty, my friends.
And don't forget to shower.
Thank you for listening. I hope you find the time today to roll. After all, the best way to get better at Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is to do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.